Huh. Look like it's gonna rain. Hey everyone. 'Tis I, multi-voice reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And today's Marvel-thon, I'm gonna talk about a certain superhero that pretty much Marvel decided to make a superhero out of one of the most legendary Norse gods. And it is the god of thunder. So what I'm reviewing to you today is, of course, the mighty Thor. Now, sadly, I don't have any printouts or pictures about it, but I watched all three of them. And one thing I should let you know is a little history. And according to my Marvel Encyclopedia book, yeah, I'm going from there. According to the Norse gods, that he was actually the god of thunder and also heir to the king of the gods, Odin. And of course, he has an adopted brother named Loki. And his first appearance in the comic books was, of course, I hate the ones who don't tell the date, but at least it shows you exact. Oh, he showed up in 1962, and right here, was the very first comic book look of the very first Thor comic, The Journey into the Mystery. He was a son of Odin. Loki is on the loose because he was banished because he caused so much trouble that Odin banished him from Asgard. And Thor noticed that he had a soft spot for humans, so therefore Odin banished Thor from Asgard as well. Now, one thing is really different than the movie and the comics. There was a scientist who goes by the name of Donald Blake. A puny guy named Donald Blake who all of a sudden found this ancient stick, and he uses the stick and transform into Thor, kind of like what they took from the from the Shazam Captain Marvel side of the story. Now, throughout the whole story, excuse me, from all the talking, my throat's getting kind of dry. Anyway, but that was in the comic books. Let's talk about the movie now. Who's that? 'Tis I, Thor, the Norse god of thunder. Thor, what the heck are you doing here? It's not often I get like some sort of thunder god in my show.
Multi-voice reviewer, I have known that you are trying to do a good review of me. Sadly, you don't have any pictures or anything, but I'll make sure that your review of my legacy goes on. Now, if you excuse me, I must go.
Great. I got a thunder god on my show. Anyway, one thing I gotta say about the movie is the two characters and the two actors who starred in it. I mean, I had to say, Chris Hemsworth, he did a pretty good job playing Thor, and he's an Australian actor. That's one thing I notice about him. But one thing it pretty much steals the show more, besides Thor and the Avengers, is of course Tom Hiddleston playing Loki. Now, what is Loki, you would ask? Well, here you go. This is Loki, ladies and gentlemen. A lot more different than Tom Hiddleston's character. And one thing I know about him is he is the Norse god of mischief and also god of evil. They made him more of a bad guy. And all he's trying to do, I mean, when I looked up more on his history, one thing I noticed about him is that he's not Asgardian. Believe it or not, he is actually the son of the king of the frost giants. Now, the frost giants are a bunch of giants who brings in winter and ice, and it turns out that he was a son of the frost giants that Odin found him. Instead of killing him or leaving him to die, he decided to adopt him. And after growing up, he noticed that his brother Thor gets all the attention, so he gets kind of envious, kind of like how most middle childs are. So now he's jealous and wants to take over as king of Asgard, which Odin says no. Now, in the movie, Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins, played Odin. Now, I thought that was kind of interesting because one thing I heard in Norse mythology that I seem to recall, a lot of people used to think of Odin as their Norse version of Santa Claus. And also, one thing I also heard in Norse mythology is that he, sometimes he's also cannibalistic. And have Anthony Hopkins play an Odin, at least he isn't going to go like, can you give me some liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti? Sorry, I just remember Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, Red Dragon, and all the other Hannibal Lecter movies. Anyway, in the movie, Odin banished Thor, and now he does like some sort of enchantment. Whoever possessed the hammer can possess the power of Thor. So Thor has been banished and landed into New Mexico, where he bumps across Stellan Skarsgård, who plays a scientist, and Natalie Portman, and of course, Kate Denning. Now, Stellan Skarsgård, I've seen him in a lot of movies. He's a really good Swedish actor. Natalie Portman, I had a huge crush on her ever since Logan the Professional. When she was a little girl, of course, I was a little kid at the time. When I was a kid, I always had crushes on female child stars when I was really young. It's kind of surprised how they grown, and some of them just they looking hotter, while others didn't age well, sadly. But anyway, and Kate Denning, I saw her in other movies, and I liked her. Heck, I even liked her in that show, Two Broken Girls. And of course, I also noticed that Rena Rosso plays Figa, Odin's wife, who is a witch. Anyway, Thor tries to figure out a way to be trying to figure out where he is and what's happening. Now, here's something that's really different. When it comes to Marvel, you have characters who have superpowers, like either a super serum gets into their bloodstream, or a freak accident, or gamma radiation, or things like that. But this is Thor. He's a Norse god who all of a sudden ended up on Earth and become a superhero. And they stick with the whole fish out of water routine, where he doesn't know where he's at, but he's trying to cope through things. And he starts to realize that he ended up on Earth and he lost his power. And when he found the hammer in New Mexico, he tries to pick it up, but he just can't lift it. Heck, many people try to lift it. It's like that sword in a stone legend, the Excalibur sword, where it's trapped inside of the stone, and whoever will be chosen to lift the sword will be king. Anyway, but Loki, being a trickster, he shows up telling Thor that his father Odin is dead, and he's still banished, and he's taken over now. So Loki starts trying to rule Asgard, but Sif, one of the North, one of the female Norse gods, her and her trusty 3 warriors who are best friends to Thor, they talk to Heimdall to get Thor back. So now, anyway, since Loki discovered that that Sif and the 3 warriors are trying to get the Thor back, Loki summoned the Destroyer, a sort of a giant robot created by Odin who is unstoppable. But since Thor found him, he told his warriors to warn everybody to get themselves out of town. And then the robot, the Destroyer, shot his beam right at Thor, and he almost died, but for the moment. But Odin knows that Thor is down, and he was like, alright, it's time to give this hammer back to Thor, where it belongs. So, the hammer finally reaches up into Thor's hand, and boom! He finally becomes a god of thunder, and took down the Destroyer, and finally went back all the way up to Asgard, and also battled against Loki, and now he's in prison. Kids screaming out there. Anyway, and at the end, Stellan Skarsgård, who plays a scientist, he meets Nick Fury and showed him the Tesseract. Now, the Tesseract is this glowing sky blue cube where it has the Infinity Stone of space in it. And of course, it shows that Loki is trying to tempt Stellan Skarsgård in trying to get the power from the Tesseract. So that was the end. But let's get to the second story, shall we? The second one, Thor: The Dark World. Now, believe it or not, this one has an origin story of Odin's father who battled against the Dark Elves. Now, I know some of you are thinking that the Dark Elves are, when you think of elves, you think of short little people who have pointy ears and work with Santa Claus. No, these elves are more like the dark version of the Lord of the Rings elves. They're not short, they're about the same height as people, and they're evil. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring darkness throughout the universe. And also, the leader of the elf is going by the name of Malekith. Malekith. And believe it or not, Malekith is played by Christopher Eccleston from Doctor Who. And a little known fact, I heard that they wanted Christopher Eccleston to play the Doctor in the 50th anniversary special, but he said no because he was busy playing Malekith. So Christopher Eccleston is trying his best to bring out the evil, trying to bring out the darkness in the world. And they were trying to make Kate Denning be more of a comic relief, and Stellan Skarsgård going crazy that he was found standing around with his equipment in the middle of Stonehenge, buck naked. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing a lot of people saying that all the girls find Tom Hiddleston attractive now, instead of finding Chris Hemsworth as Thor sexy. Now all the women are finding Tom Hiddleston sexy, in a way. And I'm just kind of puzzled with this one big question. What do you think, ladies? Who do you think is the hottest superhero? Superman or Thor? Ladies, you make the call. But sadly, Frigga, Thor's mother, she sacrificed herself to get the dark elves away from Natalie Portman because she found the Aether. Now, the Aether came from one of the Infinity Stones of the Stone of Reality. Now, the Reality Stone, what it does, it turns anything that is reality into fantasy. Like, I mean, it can turn everything into opposite. I mean, like if you see something very, very heavy and you have the reality stone, it can turn something that is really, really heavy, light as a feather. Makes you strong enough to pick up a car and wham somebody with it. Or make you be able to float a bit. I mean, going against the law of gravity. And of course, it keeps creating invisible doorways to other worlds. And since when the problem was happening, that now it's up to Thor and Jane, played by Natalie Portman, and also Loki, to battle against Malekith. Malekith finally has the Aether, and now he's starting to create. He's ready to bring darkness throughout the entire galaxy. And Thor and Loki sacrificed himself, but you know Loki, he's up to his old tricks again. And Thor finally defeated him and destroyed Malekith. Malekith. It's kind of hard to say Malekith without, you know. Oh yeah, I found him in the Gods of Asgard. Number 18 is Malekith, if you can see right here. Number 18 is Malekith. And I'll tell you about the rest later. But for now, oh yeah, one more thing I also forgot to mention. Back in 1988, Thor didn't have a live action appearance, but he did appear in one of the Incredible Hulk episode, and this is the actor who played him right here. Oh, played by Eric Kramer. Eric Kramer, who played Thor in this live action version of the Incredible Hulk. But anyway, after Thor battled against Malekith, he finally went back to Asgard and decided to honor Loki's death. But a little bit of shocker, it turns out Odin was hidden by Loki, and Loki disguised himself as Odin. And that there leads to the third one on my review, and that is Thor Ragnarok. Now, for those of you who don't know what Ragnarok is, according to Norse mythology, some people say that Ragnarok is supposed to be like a Asgardian version of Apocalypse, end of the world. And a lot of people say when it comes to Ragnarok, there is this huge fire spawn who goes by the name of Sidar, which he's on my book, which I'm going to show you. Oh yeah, that's Shadar right there. Now, Shadar is this evil fire spawn who wants to destroy Asgard until it's nothing. So one thing Thor did, he went one-on-one on Shadar and removed his helmet out of his head where he is no more. And he took the skull all the way back to Asgard, but it turns out that Hindal, played by Idris Elba, who's supposed to be the gatekeeper of Asgard, has gone. And what took his place is, of course, Skarge, played by Carl Urban, another Australian actor. Now, one thing I know about Skarge is that he's supposed to be one of the Asgard executioners. And of course, my favorite superhero of all, Doctor Strange, showed up and told Thor where Odin is at. So he immediately took him all the way to where Odin really is at. Odin was in Norway. And it turns out that he was dying. and he warned them when it's time for him to die, their first sister named Hela is going to show up. And of course, after he died, Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, showed up. Now, this is Hela right here. That woman right there. Yep, that's Hela. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Norse mythology, or mythology of Asgard, Hela is supposed to be the goddess of death. Now, a little fun fact, there was a rumor that they're planning to have Thanos get involved. Now, one thing I heard, that according to comic books, Thanos has a huge crush on Lady Death, and so does Deadpool. But, of course, you call my name? That's me, Deadpool, Merc with the mouth. And what's with the deal with Lady Death and Thanos and Hela got to do with it? I'm getting to that, Deadpool. You just had to interrupt me. Anyway, since Disney MCU cannot have Lady Deathstrike in the MCU. Oh, why is that? Because I don't think Disney have the right to do a Grim Reaper character, so they're okaying with Hela, and they're thinking about having Hela be the love interest for Thanos in the MCU, but sadly, they scrapped that idea. Oh wow, that sucks. Hey, having Cate Blanchett playing Hela? I mean, she ain't no Lady Death, but she is some Death Fox. And no wonder they call him Asgard. Why do you think they call it Asgard? Because they keep their ass guarded. Get out of my show! Okay, I know when I'm not wanted. Later. That's the last time I have a fourth wall breaking comic book character, fictional character in my show. Anyway, throughout the whole story, to make a long story short, Loki and Thor end up in another world that it was owned by none other than owned by the Grand Master here, except he's played by Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, that's right. I am, yeah, Jeff Goldblum playing, the Grand Master. Anyway, in his planet, he creates this huge arena, and they force Thor to be one of them. And he also figured out that the woman who took him was, of course, Valkyrie, played by the very lovely Tisha Thompson. Now, she's a very lovely actress. I mean, very pretty. But one thing I started to notice is they're making this Valkyrie character be more of a lesbian. So I'm hearing that Disney are planning to make lesbian characters in their franchise, so they can have some gay characters involved in Disney. But I don't know if they're gonna go along with this or not. I mean, I'm hearing about Elsa being gay on Frozen. But anyway, and much of his surprise, he also found the Hulk. It turns out that Hulk ended up in the Grand Master's planet after the Avengers Age of Ultron, which I'm going to talk about that during my Avengers review. Anyway, they finally escaped the planet, and of course, as Hela trying to get the remaining rebels of Asgard and try to force him to accept her as a ruler, Thor showed up. And even though his hammer was destroyed, he spiritually communicated with his father Odin. And I remember the question that Anthony Hopkins said to Thor. He said, "Are you the Thor, the god of hammers? I use the hammer to obtain your power." So he finally realized he can control lightning without the hammer. So now he's kicking butt with a little help from Loki and Valkyrie, and he also made friends with a couple of aliens from that planet he ended up in. And they finally battled against Hela, but The problem is, she's too strong. As long as she's in Asgard, she will be unstoppable. So the only way they can stop her is they need to destroy Asgard and get all these Asgardian people out of their land and find a new world. So Thor told Loki to bring back Sadar. Let him bring Ragnarok in Asgard. So now Loki did it, and Sadar showed up, and he destroyed Asgard along with Hela, and that was the end. And as Thor, Loki, Heimdall, Valkyrie, and the remains of the Asgardians. Oh yeah, and Hela even cut his eye, so now he has one eye. Now he's starting to look more like his dad, Odin. But anyway, they decided to go to Earth, to the same place where Odin ended up in, Norway. Which I think Norway should be a good place for Asgardians to live on. But they ended the movie with Thanos' ship showing up. And that pretty much leaves us to the Infinity War, which I'm also going to be talking about in my Avengers review. So, this is my review of Thor for today. If you like this review of Thor, please leave a comment down below, hit like, and subscribe for more reviews. And Thor, what do you think?
I see you did splendidly. You pretty much bring my legacy in this media. Oh, if you want this Deadpool guy out of the way, call me.
Thank you, Thor. And you know what? I think there's a part of a similarity between Thor and Wonder Woman. I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but I don't know. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy my review of Thor. And next on my review is, oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about a superhero who wears the American flag. And ready or not, folks, I'm going to be very patriotic in this one, so stay tuned.